So you'll have an expression for an item in a list. Expression can be a variable, it can be an expression like something you want to do with the item in the list. This time I'll show you guys a simple way. So letter for letter in human. So it's like you've done your for loop the other way around. So you're saying return letter for a letter in human. When you write that, you put your square brackets around the expression and it'll come as a list. And when you print the variable, you'll have HUMAN. Yes, a question. Ezra?
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
When it is necessary to use list comprehension, because I think that it is possible to do in the for loops, and it is why and when it is necessary to use list comprehension.
Yeah. So that's a good question. You'll use it to save space mainly. So sometimes for loops can go and be quite long. Indentations, space. For loops tend to be really long. Sometimes they can go down all the way. So it would be to save space. It's like writing a for loop in just one line. So it can make your code readable and not overwhelming to read. Like someone would think, yo, your code has so many lines. So when you can make your code like more compact, it's easier to read and it could also run faster. It could make your for loop run faster. But there's a difference of opinion there. So here is an example of where you would do it in a normal for loop. So it's just to show you that you can do it the long way or you can do it the elegant one line away. So if you're going to do it the long way, you have to first define an empty list before you start. So that's a step that you don't have to do when you're doing the list comprehension. So first you call it H letters and you have to define an empty list. And then you start your for loop, for letter in human. Take H letters and append every letter and then print H letters. You see how that's like more admin. It's like the longer way of doing it. You have to first define an empty list. Then you also have to use append, which you don't have to do here. All you have to do is put your for loop inside square brackets and it will put your result in a list for you. But let me run that and you get the same result. Does that answer your question as well?
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I understand.
Okay. While loops. I know for me personally, while loops took me some time to just get used to, but let's hope it'll be intuitive for you guys. So another type of loop in Python, so far we've done if statements, if, elif, else. We've done for loops. Now we're doing while loops. So another type of loop in Python is a while loop. It iterates, it loops, it goes through your condition until that condition is met. So when that condition is not met, your while loop will keep running. So when you define your while loop, you have to be quite careful. Make sure that you define it for something that exists or for something that you know will happen. If it doesn't, you're gonna have to your while loop is gonna run infinitely. So it's going to keep running forever until you stop it. So if there's a risk where you think the while loop may not be met, that's when the the break of this part comes in. But we'll do that below. Okay. So let's start. I first start by defining an initial value for the variable I want to compare in the condition. Initial values usually start by 0 because maybe you want to add something. Um, a good example where people usually use them and how I usually use them is for counters. When you want to count something, uh, you want to know the number of times that your loop is going through, you will use an initial value of 0, I equals 0. So you start your while loop, right? While your variable is smaller than 10, semicolon, press enter, it'll indent for you. Whoa, press enter, it'll indent for you. Print I. So while I is smaller than 10, I like Python because that's English, right? So when you read it, it just sounds like a sentence. So it makes sense to you intuitively. While I is smaller than 10, print I. And then with I, you want to add the old value of I, you add 1 to it, and you make that the new value. So it's going to keep adding 1 to your new value or your old value, and then your new values, it'll keep adding 1. So remember, another way of writing this is like that. Small I. Another way of writing that, if the other way confuses you. So it prints all the i's. So it's going to go into the while loop. I is 0. So 0 is smaller than 10. Yes, it is smaller than 10. So continue in the loop. So it goes in the loop. It prints 0 because that's what we do. And then after printing 0, it takes 0 and it adds 1. Now a new value is 1. So it's going to come here. 1 is 1 smaller than 10. Yes, it is. It'll go inside your while loop and continue. It'll print 1, and then it'll add 1 to the 1, which is 2. So that will keep happening until you get to, like, the last number here is 9, meaning the value was 9. It came here, it compared 9 smaller than 10. Yes, it is. It came inside the loop, printed 9, and then it added 1. Then 9 became 10. I became 10. Then it came here and said, is 10 smaller than 10? No, it's not. They're equal. That's when it ended. So a condition was met, your while loop ended. Not going to run infinitely. And yeah. Questions? I saw Papilo posted a question regarding this, and I saw that Ezra helped you. So I guess you guys have been also doing some of the iterating loops on the side.
I have a question.
Mm.
Um, what's the difference between putting that end there, that in between the print bracket, and not putting it there?
So the end will put your print, whatever you want to print in the loop, it'll put it on one line. So let's say I take it off. Let's see how that comes out.
Oh, okay.
It'll
Yeah,
just put it one under the other.
that's what actually I did. So
Yeah, it's quite cool. Roberto, I saw that your mic was like on.
No, no, it was on. It was on, but no.
You can ask.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay.
I'll relook at my work again and then I'll ask you. I think it's
Okay.
yeah.
And the question that you put on Slack, did you end up like understanding after Ezra helped you?
I did, but then I didn't. And then I did, then I did not, right? So
It happens. It happens.
like yesterday I was confident but now I'm not. So that's why I'm saying I'll look at it and maybe look at other questions and examples, and maybe it'll click. I find that if I code a lot, then sometimes it clicks.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So if you're not feeling confident, just keep coding and don't give up. It'll make sense sooner or later. Okay. So fine tuning your loops with the break and continue. So the break and continue, use them within your loops. You can use them for for loops and while loops. The break statement breaks out of the loop entirely. So an example I gave you above with the while loop is if, for example, for whatever reason, you have a condition that will never be met, like zero equal to zero, your while loop will just keep running. I don't know if that's a good example, but yeah, let's pretend that makes sense. But if you have a condition that will never be met, your while loop will keep running infinitely. So to